like to call to order tonight's meeting of the Hammond Plan Commission for August 19th, 2024. If you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Morris-Smith, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Brock?
Here.
Michael Guy?
Here.
Ronald Sims?
Here.
William Hutton?
Here.
Thomas Kazimierzak? Nancy Talley?
Here.
Thomas Sabaton?
Here.
Marcus Taylor?
Uh-oh. Still on mute. I see his lips are moving.
Here.
There he is.
Dean Button?
Here.
8 present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda, you should have received in your board packet meeting minutes for June the 25th of 2024. The chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I'd like to make that motion, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Hutton, seconded by Commissioner Dabberton. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brock?
Yes.
Michael Guy?
Yes.
Ronald Sims?
Yes.
William Hutton?
Yes.
Nancy Talley?
Yes.
Thomas Sabaton?
Yes.
Marcus Taylor?
Yes.
Dean Button?
Yes.
8 ayes, 0 nays, motion passed.
Next item is item 4, old business. Is there any old business?
There is no old business.
Thank you, Mr. Poland. Item 5 is new business. Item 5A, CP 24-07, a petition of NH Vegas LLC for approval of one-lot subdivision of Luke's 267 Station, addition replat to the City of Hammond, located at 1051 and 1053 Indianapolis Boulevard, which is Zone C4 within the City of Hammond, Lake County, Indiana. It is my understanding that this petition has been withdrawn,
No, it's a request to table to the next meeting.
tabled until the next meeting.
There
due to
was
a-
an issue with their notifications.
Due to a notification error. Thank you, Mr. Poland. So we will, Chair would entertain a motion to table.
Mr. President, I would like to make that motion to table this until the next meeting, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Hutton, seconded by Councilman Spitali. It's been moved and properly seconded to table the motion. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brock?
Yes.
Michael Guy?
Yes.
Ronald Sims?
Yes.
William Hutton?
Yes.
Nancy Talley?
Yes.
Thomas Sabaton?
Yes.
Marcus Taylor?
Yes.
Dean Button?
Yes.
8 ayes, 0 nays, motion passed.
Next item is 5, under 5 is CP 24-08, determination of parking requirements pursuant to Title 20, Section 20.46.03. I would ask if the notifications for this determination have been completed.
Yes, they have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Poland?
Good evening, members of the Plan Commission.
Good evening.
I will be acting, if there is no objections, I would be acting as presenter and as reviewer on this petition that's coming from the staff.
Any objections from the commissioners? Hearing none, please proceed, Mr. Poland.
Okay. What's before you tonight is a determination of a parking ratio that the zoning ordinance does not state clearly or specifically or at all. There is a ordinance provision that references that in that event that there isn't a parking ratio, that the Plan Commission can make a determination what that parking ratio is. Specifically, what is the question before the Plan Commission is determining a parking ratio for group homes and community residences. A group home is a residential living facility that is comprised of in which 8 individuals or less reside in it. They reside in some type of quote-unquote family-like situation. Typically, they are people who have sort of disabilities, other types of conditions or situations that fall under the fair housing laws. In essence, they function and no differently than a single-family house in a neighborhood. A community residence is very similar. In essence, it's a large group home in which there are 9 or more individuals living in those types of circumstances. The difference is that 9 or more people is a lot of people and are typically larger than, shall we say, a quote-unquote normal number of people who are in a household. The 8 figure, the difference between 8 and 9 is commonly used throughout the state as the defining point as the difference between group home or another type of facility. The different ordinances that we researched for a different situation, but communities may not call them community residences, they may call them large group homes or other terms that they use, but the definition is always based on whether it's 8 or less or 9 or more. This came about because of a situation that is coming before the Board of Public Works, before the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I want to make it clear that we're not discussing that case that's going before the Board of Zoning Appeals. That's not in the Plan Commission's jurisdiction, but it was the reason that this has come about. So what we're specifically talking about is what is the appropriate zoning parking ratio determination in the absence of the zoning ordinance not really covering it. That's the core issue. We actually had assistance from this petition we know that's going to the BZA and helping us give us their take on some of the provisions in our zoning ordinance, if they are like or not alike. That is the attachment to the staff report, is the information that they provided for us. And slight tangent, I forgot to make a point of saying, does everybody have a copy of the revised version of the staff report that has today's date on it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in their analysis, they did a comparison of multifamily homes, independent living, senior multiple family dwellings, assisted living facilities, boarding or rooming houses, and then I think I put in daycare centers. Those are other types of residential situations, different amounts of people, the characteristics or the circumstances upon which the people are living there, or in the case of daycare centers, staying there for a period of time, are different, and they didn't quite meet what the definition of a group home is. In trying to develop this ratio, and I'm going to pause for a second. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was trying to think of public hearing side of it, but okay, the proposal that the staff has put together, if you look at that on the second page of the report, we call out both the group home and the community residence. The proposal is for group homes because by definitions under the fair housing laws, they are not supposed to be treated any differently than any other single-family residence in a neighborhood, that we thought the appropriate ratio would be the ratio for a single-family residence. In essence, what that says is 2 parking spaces per residence, and that up to no more than 4. The community residence ratio that we've come up with is 1 parking space per resident plus employee parking. And what we're doing, and this is a little bit done differently than what we've done in the past. We felt that because of the nature of community residences and some of the umbrella issues of the fair housing laws, we felt that if there is a circumstance, and we define the circumstances, in which that ratio can't be met, that it is something that will be written that the staff has the opportunity or the responsibility to change that ratio if certain conditions are met. This is avoiding going to the Board of Zoning Appeals over a parking ratio. So it's what we call an administrative variance. And in this proposal, I list 7 characteristics that can be looked at. The statement is that you have to have at least 2 of those or more of those in order for staff to grant the variance. These are limitations on the size of the property, if there are residents that are under the legal driving age, the provider has a policy restriction that limits privately owned vehicles, the provider has a policy restriction on visitors, the provider provides some type of transportation service, a van or other type of vehicle. 6th, a reasonable accommodation under the ADA, and then compliance with the fair housing laws. So again, someone who asking to reduce their parking, they have to fit a minimum of 2 of those criteria. We also do say that a minimum parking for employees is required. A lot of group homes and/or community residences have staff who are either living there 24/7 or shift work, that there's someone that's typically there to monitor them, and that the staff is not allowed to reduce the employee parking ratio. That would be a situation that would throw it into the Board of Zoning Appeals if they want to basically say they want 0 parking in essence. One of the things that was interesting, and that's why I put in the provision about residents that are under the legal driving age, is that a group home could be children, could be adults. Obviously, if you presumably you have children 16 and under, they can't drive. There's not going to be a reason to have parking spaces if they don't have cars. So that's why it's very important trying to write these provisions in such a way that covers all the possible forms or residents who could live in a group home and or a community residence. And then I will stop at that point for the presentation.
Questions from the commissioners to the petitioner? Mr. Hutton.
Thank you. Mr. Poland, well done. Thank you very much. These types of facilities, in my opinion, I think are warranted. We understand you've done a good job trying to figure this out and weigh it out in consideration for the residents of the surrounding area. I think we have a home such as this in our neighborhood as well, and well regarded, well respected. Everything works out. No, not a problem. I do have a couple of questions though, and that is, this group home Is this for adolescents? Is this for, hang on, let me finish my train of thought. Is this for adolescents? Is this for, newborns? Is this for adults? And how is that going to be determined?
Okay, I'm going to answer that by saying that the specific group home or community residence that was the reason for this is not an issue, and I will not provide information about that because that's for the Board of Zoning Appeals. When it comes to group homes, community residence citywide, that is a matter of understanding who the clients are, and then therefore we would understand whether or not it is newborns all the way up to 16 or whatever,
Adults, yeah,
or adults, yeah.
understand. The reason I asked the question is, how do we establish the number of parking spaces that are required? And I'm saying one parking space per room, per occupant is a fair number. One parking space per employee, fair number. What about visitors that come to the neighborhood?
Well, one of the things that was challenging in this analysis,
Mr. Westland is raising his hand.
Oh.
Mr. Westland?
Yeah, so I just wanted to echo what Brian said. This is really, a policy determination for globally how the Hammond ordinance is going to deal with these situations. It's your general rule, and the rule that Brian is proposing, that staff is recommending, has this general rule of one parking place per resident plus the employee parking, and then the ability to obtain an administrative variance, right? Like if these other 7 things are met. And I think what you have to bear in mind is that this is a balance that Mr. Poland and the staff is trying to strike. You always, a petitioner, a landowner, always has the ability to come in and ask for a variance, right? Like, and because of something unique that's not even addressed in this, this change to the zoning ordinance. So it's really a general rule, and I think, Mr. Hutton, the issues you raise are good issues, but they got to be dealt with on a case-by-case kind of specific situation, depending on the type of group home, and I'm using that word, and I don't know how else to characterize it. Depending on the type, the use of the facility, who the residents are, what they're there for, et cetera, we've got to have a general rule that gives some flexibility for the very things that you're now asking about. So, for instance, if it's a facility where there are visitors, maybe then an administrative or regular variance is not granted because we need to have these other sort of parking places. And I think we've got to have the general rule out there, and we need to give the staff the flexibility to analyze each situation as it comes. And I really think that Brian's proposal does that.
I agree. I do, Mr. Busland. Thank you. I agree with it.
okay.
I was just searching for answers. Thank you.
I hope I gave you a few.
You did. Both of you did. Thank you.
Okay.
I guess I'm still not clear on the visitor part, right? I mean, the other ordinance that are compared to suggest that in independent senior living, assisted living, you look at the potential for visitors. Why wouldn't you, in a community residence, why wouldn't you consider visitors attending here?
Okay, because by the nature of the facilities, the likelihood of visitors probably is almost zero.
Okay.
Because, again, these facilities are intended to fit in the neighborhood, blend with the neighborhood, act like a neighborhood. all of us have visitors at our houses, okay? So when it comes to literally the group home, 8 or less, I'm trying to equalize. A group home with 8 or less is just like a house. So if you have visitors, they're going to park on the street. Or if you have an extra driveway, they're going to park in the driveway. That's where the visitor's going to go. You know, I don't know how many visitors you have, Mr. Hutton.
I understand.
As to what really, it's not going to be excessive, or it's not going to be any more than what already is occurring in your neighborhood with all your neighbors and who have parties or you know, whatever's going on in your neighborhood. So in a community residence, again, all it is a larger group home. So the circumstances really, because you may not, it would be up to the facility to determine whether or not they want to allow visitors to see the residents. You know, maybe that's why I said, there may be a policy by that organization to say, hey, we don't want visitors because they're in a program in which visitors would be a distraction.
I mean, I see the restriction on visitors, but doesn't seem like there's anything to suggest that there is a requirement to list the potential number of visitors. We're just saying that we don't expect any visitors to occur, and so if you have a parking restriction that you're not going to have any visitors, then that allows you to approve it administratively without having to go to the BZA.
Right, well, I think the question becomes, first of all, again, it's if the facility wants to allow visitors or not, that's a factor, number two. And secondly, again, these are residences in a neighborhood. We don't restrict a homeowner from having a visitor, so it would be, in my opinion, and Mr. Westland can correct me on my legal interpretation, it would be a burden to treat a community residence or a group home differently by saying, okay, you're only going to have 3 visitors because you only have 3 parking spaces. We don't do that for Mr. Hutton.
You should. I'm sorry.
He does have wild parties, Brian.
I do.
Yeah, well,
I do.
I'm not trying to get into any character issues, Mr. Hutton.
No, it's okay. I want to, is my turn?
Please,
I'd like
Mr.
to
Hutton.
keep going with Mr. Button's questions. The visitor, is the visitor part of the healing process of these people that are in these homes so that they can get better and go home?
I cannot answer that on a global basis because I am not familiar with all of the details of the facility as to whether that is a beneficial thing, which is why the statement is the provider can make that decision. And therefore, if they don't allow visitors, we don't need visitor parking.
But on the other side, they might want the visitors to help with this process.
And again, remember, these are facilities in a residential district.
Okay.
And we all have visitors. I would like to think we all have visitors. Some of us are more hermits than others, but
That could be.
yeah, Mr. Hutton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm good.
Any other questions for Mr. Poland? I have one other. So we routinely in our roles review site plans for parking determinations. How does ADA compliance work within this parking covenant, right? I mean, for so many spaces, you need enough spaces to be compliant with American with Disabilities Act. We assume that they would follow that same number and topic and location and all those things.
So in any situation, if you have an off-street parking lot, you have to comply with, the size of spaces, the drive aisle, as well as the number of ADA spaces.
But we don't do that with homeowners.
We don't, but
right.
most homeowners don't have a off-street parking lot.
Got Mr. Westland jumping in again.
So anytime you're offering services to the public, you've got to comply with ADA requirements. And my response to that question would be that nothing you put in your Hammond ordinances can trump what is required by the ADA. So the ADA requirements would still apply.
Right. But then the AD also says you can make adjustments to local regulations under the reasonable accommodation definition under the ADA, which is why that statement's in there.
So when we do our normal review, we consider accessibility, parking accessibility issues at that time too.
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, it's a bit counterintuitive, but, you know, we are required under the ADA in an off-street parking situation to have that minimum number of ADA spaces, and the first one has to be van accessible. I can't imagine a circumstance in which someone's going to contend reasonable accommodation to have 0 ADA spaces. I don't really see that, because that would be, like I said, counterintuitive or against the whole premise of the law. But nonetheless, it's in there as a catch-all, to be quite frank, that in case there is some unusual circumstance that they need to make a reasonable accommodation to change something, even in the size of the space and all that kind of stuff, which I don't think is likely, but nonetheless, it's there as a catch-all.
I just guess I wonder if you, on the off chance that you have someone that doesn't, no one in the facility has a disability and no one visiting the facility, and you have a space that's never used.
I'm going to question you on that. What you have to understand, again, there are many forms of disabilities. And so to say no one in the facility would have a disability would be unfair to say, because they're more than likely in a group home situation because of a disability. It doesn't have to be a physical disability. It could be perhaps a substance abuse disability that's compliant, that fits underneath those laws. So that's where, you know, I don't want to necessarily get wrapped up in the van accessible issue, but you got to be careful about saying they don't have, someone in there doesn't have a disability. More than likely there will be.
That would require a parking space, though?
No, that's my whole point, is that, again, if they're providing off-street parking, which is what the rule generally says, if you have a community residence, we want you to provide off-street parking. You're going to have to comply with all the normal regulations that any parking lot has. And I don't think realistically there's a circumstance in which you would not want to provide those spaces.
Fair enough. Thank you.
But I just put it in there anyway.
Any other questions for Mr. Poland as petitioner?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm done with it as petitioner.
So at this point, we normally open this up for a public hearing to ask questions to the Plan Commission and to have staff, in this case, either the petitioner or staff, respond to those questions. So I would invite anyone in the audience who wishes to make a comment or question are welcome to do that at this time. Anyone wishing to address the Plan Commission related to this petition? Anyone online wishing to address the Plan Commission? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and I'll move on to the staff report on this petition. Mr. Poland.
Okay, I just will go to the recommendation section because the rest of it's already been presented. Staff recommends for the Plan Commission to determine, see, there's a spelling wrong, under Title Section 20.46.03 that the proposed parking ratio for group homes and community residences is accepted as proposed. If the Plan Commission agrees with the recommendation, the staff requests that this report be adopted by the Plan Commission as preliminary findings of fact.
Questions for Mr. Poland as staff? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a recommendation for the Plan Commission to determine that Title Section 20.46.03, the proposed parking ratio for group homes and community residences is accepted as proposed. Is there so motion?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Brock. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is that Commissioner Taylor? Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. It's been moved and properly seconded to accept the proposal, the proposed parking ratio for group homes and community residences as proposed. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brown.
Yes.
Michael Dodd.
Yes.
Ronald Sims.
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Nancy Talley.
Yes.
Thomas Davidson.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor.
Yes.
Dean Button.
Yes.
8 ayes, 0 nays, motion passed.
Chair would also entertain a motion that the Plan Commission accept the recommendation by the staff and it be adopted by the Plan Commission as a preliminary finding of fact. Is there such a motion? Thank you. Commissioner Dabberton, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by,
Point of order. You said to accept the recommendation. You meant to say that accept the staff report as the findings of fact?
beg your pardon, I amend my call for the motion to, thank you, Mr. Tabberton.
My second still stands.
Thank you, Commissioner Brock. It's been moved and properly seconded for the report to be adopted by the Plan Commission as a preliminary finding of fact. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Roger Brown.
Yes.
Michael Dodd.
Yes.
Ronald Sims.
Yes.
William Hutton.
Yes.
Nancy Talley.
Yes.
Thomas Davidson.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor.
Yes.
Dean Button.
Yes.
8 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, motion passed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Poland, for your hard work on that petition. Next item on the agenda is item number 6, correspondence.
No correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Poland. Next item is item 7, commissioners' comments. Any comments by commissioners? Hearing none. Item 8 is staff comments.
Yep, just as a reminder that, CP 2407 has been tabled to the September 16th meeting of the Plan Commission.
Thank you. Now is item 9 to open up for public comment. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the Plan Commission? Anyone in the audience? Anyone online? Hearing none, public comment is closed. As Mr. Poland mentioned, our next meeting of the Plan Commission is scheduled for Monday, September 16th. Wish you all a happy Labor Day. And the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Dabberton, seconded by Councilman Emerson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? We are adjourned.